The story begins in an oil factory located in Mexico. Inside this oil factory, we see an employee who is running for his life, being chased by something unknown that is constantly pursuing him from underground. This mysterious creature seems terrifying and dangerous, prompting the employee to flee immediately. As he escapes, he runs over many containers, but the dangerous creature from the ground knocks the containers over, causing the employee to fall down. At this point, the employee has no escape route left. Suddenly, the terrifying creature emerges from the ground, grabs the employee, and devours him in mere seconds, leaving him no time to comprehend what just happened. Ultimately, the employee loses his life. Nearby, we meet a man named Al, who used to work as a rescue officer. Al has put aside all his work for the time being and has started managing his farm, which is filled with several ostriches and domestic animals. One day, a businessman named Carlos approaches Al. Carlos has come after seeing Al and his friend Ryan's photos in the newspaper, as they had previously confronted a very dangerous creature. Carlos explains to Al that his oil factory is located nearby, and recently a dangerous creature has been living underground, continuously eliminating their employees. If this continues, Carlos will have to shut down his oil factory. Upon hearing this, Al quickly realizes that this might be the same creature they had encountered before. His old friend Ryan had also fought against these creatures and had managed to eliminate several of them. Now, Carlos wants Al to eliminate the creatures in the oil factory, promising a substantial sum of money in return. However, Al firmly refuses Carlos's proposal, knowing full well how dangerous and horrifying these creatures can be. There was a constant risk of losing one's life in such encounters. After giving it much thought, Al declines Carlos's deal. After Carlos leaves, Al's assistant, Grady, comes into the scene. Now, Grady approaches Al and explains that Carlos will pay them for eliminating each creature, so they shouldn't miss this opportunity to become quite wealthy. Al was aware of his financial situation and the struggles he was facing. He needed some dollars to get married and start a family. Thus, Al decided to accept Grady's idea, which meant he would go to Carlos's oil factory and eliminate all the creatures present underground. After this, both Grady and Al set off towards the oil factory. Carlos was very pleased to see Al there, knowing he had significant experience. He clearly explained to them that if they managed to capture the creatures alive, they would receive $100,000, and if they killed them, they would earn $50,000. Grady had already made all the necessary arrangements, including a variety of weapons and grenades. They began preparing all the weapons to eliminate the creatures, and they had everything they needed. Now, it seemed Al and Grady were ready to confront the creatures. Carlos introduced them to a geologist named Mia, who would provide all the information about the area to Carlos's company. Al found Mia to be very beautiful and charming. She also introduced them to her assistant, who had set up devices across the area to locate the creatures underground. After making all the plans, Al and Grady got into their car and drove off to a distant location, while Mia and her assistant remained at the center to keep providing them with data. Suddenly, Mia informed Al and Grady that a very dangerous creature was following them because it was tracking the sound of their car. Al and Grady immediately stopped their car and got out, realizing that driving this way could be extremely dangerous. However, Al came up with a new way to eliminate the creatures. He took a small remote-controlled car and attached dynamite to it, which he controlled to drive continuously across the field. Now, sensing the vibrations from the small remote-controlled car, the creature underground grabbed it directly with its mouth. However, by that time, Al had pressed the dynamite button, resulting in a huge explosion that killed the creature instantly. Using this technique, the two of them eliminated many creatures present underground. After working hard, they both sat on a rock to take a little rest. Grady was quite hungry, so he started eating. However, Grady accidentally left a radio on, which was lying on the ground. Hearing the vibrations from the radio, a creature came and pulled him down. After finishing a day's work, they went to rest, and then the next day, they returned to use the same technique again. They were really enjoying eliminating all these creatures. While sitting in their car, a strong gust of wind caused one of their umbrellas to fall. Grady immediately went to pick it up, but then he started hearing the sound of his radio, which had been stolen the previous night. Al quickly checked the radar system and saw that a dangerous creature was approaching Grady. He immediately told Grady to come back up. At that moment, a very dangerous creature emerged right beside Grady. It truly looked like a terrifying centipede, and it was enormous. Fortunately, Al managed to get Grady back up into the car. However, the creature underground started pulling a chain attached to the car, dragging Al and Grady's vehicle along with it. Although Al tried hard to hit the brakes, it was of no use. The creature was pulling their car toward a very deep ravine. Grady started screaming in panic upon seeing this. As they approached the ravine, the creature stopped there, likely realizing that if it threw their car off, it could fall into the ravine itself. So, the creature underground began pulling the car in the opposite direction, and the chain broke. As a result, they both stopped at one spot. But suddenly, Al noticed that several creatures were approaching their car from the ground. So, Al quickly started the car with Grady and drove away from the mining field. Now, Al and Grady had returned to their center. Al called his old friend Ben, who was very skilled at making weapons and bombs. Al informed Ben that he was in Mexico, where he was facing many dangerous creatures and needed his bombs and weapons. Meanwhile, everyone was present at the research center, where they were examining all the fossils that Al and Grady had brought. After a while, May discovered something shocking. These fossils were very old, dating back to the time when dinosaurs roamed the earth. Everyone was astonished to learn that these creatures had been underground for such a long time. Now, Al saw an unknown object approaching on the radar, and they all felt a bit scared. However, when they went outside, they realized it was his friend Ben, who had probably come to help Al. Ben was very happy to meet Al and the others. He brought along a truck filled with weapons and bombs that would help Al easily eliminate all the creatures. Now, Al, Ben, and Grady set out in their car towards the large oil field. They had plenty of bombs with them, so they kept placing time bombs on small cars and blasting the creatures. This was becoming quite easy for the three of them. Just then, Al noticed on the radar that a creature was running away from them instead of approaching their car. Al shared this information with Grady, as this behavior change in the creatures seemed strange. This made Al a little uneasy, so he and Grady sat in the car and continued to chase the creature, suspecting that these creatures could be evolving and that this might be some kind of trick to deceive them. Their car kept moving steadily. Just then, the same creature emerged right in front of them, causing Al's car to tip and get stuck next to a rock. Al and Grady somehow managed to get out of the car and went to see the creature that had emerged from the ground. The creature stood still in one spot, neither attacking nor fleeing in fear. Grady had placed a bomb on the remote-controlled car to eliminate it, but perhaps the creatures realized that these remote-controlled cars were a trap, which is why they did nothing to the car. Grady was confused, so he tried to touch the creature and run away, but the creature didn't attack him either. Al and Grady were perplexed about what these creatures wanted. They then decided to capture this creature alive because Carlos would pay them double for it. Al quickly called May to inform her that they had found a live creature, requesting a large truck from the company to transport it. However, Al and Grady would have to wait there until the truck arrived. That night, Al and Grady fell asleep on top of their car, while the creature beneath the ground kept emerging and screaming repeatedly. Hearing the loud noises, Grady and Al went to see what was happening. Later, they discovered that the terrible creature was now dead. Half of its body had been torn apart by something. Grady guessed that another creature must have done this, but Al suspected that a different creature had emerged from this one's belly because the type of mark left could not have been caused by an attack. This new creature was likely much more developed and dangerous than the others. Just then, they saw the truck sent by Carlos's company approaching, ready to transport the creature. However, shortly thereafter, the truck suddenly stopped in the middle of the road. Al and Grady were confused about what was happening, so they decided to walk towards the truck. But they found that someone had badly destroyed the truck's engine. No one could guess what creature this might be. When Grady went to look for the truck driver, he found his hands hanging, but the rest of his body was completely missing. This meant that the driver had been entirely consumed by the dangerous creature that had emerged from the other creature's belly. This new creature could attack, not only from the ground, but also jump on top of the car. This terrified Al, and he told Grady that they needed to get out of there. Al's plan was to head to a nearby radio tower so they could contact someone for help. However, as they approached the radio tower, the dangerous creature destroyed it, eliminating their only means of escape. Now, Al and Grady were completely trapped there. They quickly decided to leave and search for a vehicle to escape. Although they found a car, it was making some strange noises. When they followed the sounds, they encountered an odd creature. Interestingly, this creature didn't burrow underground like the others. Instead, it had developed large legs and was walking on the ground. Al quickly realized that this was likely a more evolved form of the creature, adapting itself to the conditions. The small creature charged at Al and Grady, but they managed to shoot it down with their shotgun. They noticed that this creature also had no eyes, indicating that it attacked based on sound. However, more creatures started to appear, prompting Al and Grady to jump into the car and drive away in the opposite direction. Meanwhile, Al's friend Ben had also become completely lost. While trying to find the right path in that area, he was attacked by several creatures. The smaller creatures were jumping directly onto the truck and destroying it. May, who was inside the center, was becoming increasingly worried about the others. Just then, her assistant arrived, trying to scare her with a lie, which made May feel quite alarmed. But then, May's assistant was grabbed by that creature from outside, and it started to eat his leg. May screamed in panic, trying to save him, but by the time she got to him, the creature had completely consumed her assistant. I was so scared that I locked the chamber's doors and windows. Fortunately, Al and Grady had also arrived at that location and began to fight off all the creatures present. Al informed me that the driver you sent had been killed. Ben had finally managed to get his truck to that spot, but he was a bit angry with Al for not having informed him about such creatures. Al replied that none of the radio signals were working, which is why he couldn't contact him. While Ben fought the creatures, he managed to capture one of them, and they all brought the live creature inside the center for research. However, what no one knew was that another creature had also come along, hidden inside the truck. The captured creature was placed in a very strong cage. As soon as it showed its hand, it started screaming, revealing to everyone that these creatures can sense body heat and only attack when they detect it. When they gave the creature some food, it immediately began to eat. But after a short while, it started to vomit, and within that vomit, it gave birth to a new baby creature. This indicated that these creatures do not need a partner for reproduction, and that's how they continue to increase their population. Suddenly, the second creature that had come from the truck attacked May. Grady and Al quickly used a hammer to hit the creature repeatedly to save May, ultimately killing it. However, as they rushed outside to save themselves, they found a large number of creatures had arrived and were consuming the food that had been left in the truck. May and the others had to find a way to hide, because if the creatures sense their body heat even once, they will all attack. So, they start running into a nearby warehouse. But as soon as they open the door, they realize that the back part has been destroyed. However, one good thing was that by coming behind that wall, the creatures could not sense them. Therefore, Al and Grady cautiously moved forward while hiding behind a door. But the hiding space was too small for everyone. Ben kept shooting the creatures with his high-tech weapons, but their numbers had increased significantly, and they were ready to attack. Al's entire team had scattered in a panic, each one trying to save themselves. The creatures were frantically attacking each person. Ben hid near a crane, while Al pulled the others up onto an oil tower. Ben, who was stuck inside the crane, continued to shout at Al because he hadn't told them anything about these creatures. This led to a heated argument between them, but I urged them to stay quiet. They had to find a way to get out of there. Ben noticed that the creatures had become quite intelligent as they were climbing on top of each other to reach higher ground. In a desperate move to save his teammates, Ben came out and started shouting loudly, drawing the creatures' attention. The creatures began to chase Ben, and Al and the others realized that this might be part of Ben's plan. Ben continuously entered and exited the warehouse through its doors, and when all the creatures followed him inside, he cleverly slipped out through another door, trapping the creatures inside the warehouse. But Grady reminded them that there was a lot of food stored inside, which the creatures could eat and reproduce from, significantly increasing their numbers. Therefore, it was crucial to eliminate them. Just then, Al brought a fire extinguisher and suggested they spray it all over their bodies with carbon dioxide, as this would drastically reduce Al's body heat. Al's plan was working well. When he entered the warehouse, none of the creatures could sense his body. But Al had to finish this quickly because the carbon dioxide could melt at any moment. He immediately grabbed some time bombs placed there and fit them right in the middle of all the creatures. Due to the diminishing effects of the carbon dioxide, the creatures could now see Al, and they started to attack him. However, seizing a good opportunity, Al managed to slip out of the warehouse. He told the others that he had planted a very dangerous time bomb inside, so they needed to get out of there. They all started moving away from the warehouse. Although the creatures were trying very hard to get out, within a few seconds, the bomb activated, causing a massive blast. The warehouse, along with all the creatures, was destroyed. This meant that Al's team had solved the problem of these advanced creatures. They all decided to split the money they would receive from Carlos. Al and I had started to like each other, and perhaps we would spend our lives together. And that's how our story ends here.